Welcome from my side. My name is Charlie Suter and we are going to start this webinar now. This webinar is about the Nordics country, a very interesting country or part of Switzerland, and a very interesting part of Europe, pardon. This webinar includes also the possibility that you can ask questions. You see on the right side there is a program or a dropout where you can ask your question and insert your question. We are going to answer them direct in this webinar or later on at the end of the recorded session. What do you have to expect today? We prepared some information. Our expert, Sandra Tobler, who is a country consultant for Switzerland Global Enterprise in this market, and a few others, will give you a deep insight view on this country, on those area about the Nordic markets. My name is Charlie Suter. I'm the moderator of this webinar, going to handle all the questions and the moderation during the workshop or the webinar. About the Nordics, there was last night, I remember, was a talk in Basel with Professor Stiglitz, the Nobel Prize winner, and he was talking about the future of Europe. Does Europe have its future from the perspective of an American professor, of course? Where are the pitfalls? What is good in Europe and what not? Of course, in focus was the southern part of Europe, the debt crisis from Italy, Greece, and Spain. There were lots of talking about those countries, but he mentioned, and this is, I think, also a good start for this webinar, he mentioned we should not forget those countries which are on the good path, which do their homework. Not everything is perfect, but on those countries which did their homework, he was mentioning, therefore, especially Switzerland and Sweden or Norway as example of how some countries in Europe are doing good. Not everybody is in the same situation, and those countries were pronounced or especially highlighted from him. So he believes that those countries are doing good. Is this an opportunity for Swiss SMEs? Is this a good market? And how can we enter this market? I'll pass the microphone right over to Sandra. She will answer those questions and also your questions. Thanks from my side, and we talk later.
Thank you, Charlie. My name is Sandra Tobler. I am from Switzerland Global Enterprise, responsible for the whole Northern European market, including countries like UK, Ireland, but especially the Nordics, why we're here today, as well as the Baltics and the Benelux countries. So there is no such thing as the Nordic market. That's actually, indeed, that's the starting point. What I would like to highlight in the very beginning is that you have to look at each individual country and market separately. There is no such thing as the Nordics. You need to have separate market entry strategies and also background of the individual culture that you're trying to do business with. So this is a starting point. I think I will cover today a bit of how you can enter such a Nordic market, but to start with, I will give you some information of my organization, Switzerland Global Enterprise. that might be better known to some of you under the name OSEC, our previous name. Then I will tell you something about the market as such, if I look at it as an entity, as an entire entity. Afterwards, we will address a few things on what possible entry strategies can be, what needs to be taken care of before addressing the market, and I will share some do's and don'ts at the very end. So don't hesitate to address your questions during the webinar or afterwards. So Switzerland Global Enterprise is a private association. We're existing since 1927. We are the trade promotion agency as such. I'm working in the so-called export department. In the meantime, we received different mandates from the State Secretariat for Economic Affairs, like investment promotion, where we help make promotion abroad for attracting foreign companies to settle in Switzerland. The implementation then happens by the cantons, is supported by the cantons. The third mandate we're supporting is import promotion department that we have, and there we work with strategic countries where we help enable companies, SMEs, to grow themselves also internationally, mostly in domains not in competition with the Swiss SMEs. Now, what we are doing, first of all, maybe from an organization point of view, we are headquartered in Zurich, but have branch offices in both Lausanne and Lugano, approximately 100 employees over all these different services departments, and fair department in addition is also settled in Zurich. Then we have another 70 employees abroad. They're integral part of the Swiss embassies abroad. In my region, if I look at the Nordic European countries, I have 2 people, actually including Invest, 3 people dedicated sitting in London. However, in the Northern European area, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, as well as Finland, there is no dedicated person from our organization, but I'm working on an ad hoc basis with the local trade officers from the Swiss embassies. So that means whenever they have capacity to work on individual projects with SMEs in Switzerland, we are going to do it together, and if there is a need to work with specialty, everything else is covered by private experts. And especially when it comes to very specific questions, technical topics, there I work directly with special experts from the different fields and implement market studies or whatever request that might occur. So you see our offices covered here. What do we do concretely? And first of all, the first layer is the information layer. We provide, wherever possible, easy accessible information to SMEs. That can be information covering market opportunities, recent development in legislation, but also news, media coverage of the respective countries. We do that normally in a 1-hour evaluation as a part of the service public a mandate that we have. We sit together with a small medium enterprise and look at what information they require in order to take a decision on whether a market is interesting to them or not. So when it becomes obvious that a company needs to know more than just easy accessible information, and their demand of information is very specific, what we can do is provide a very detailed analysis on a market, on the different layers, like the purchasing power on a different product, benchmarking, store checks for comparable products, but also when it comes to services providers, it will be more competitor analysis or market entry strategies, or what would be the typical go-to-market channels to enter such a market. So the analysis side is covered by us. There we have the obligation to charge 150 Swiss francs per hour for every hour dedicated to an individual project. And this is not to treat the SMEs differently, so to have a kind of a common treatment of all the small medium enterprises, but at the same time we don't want to compete with private organizations that do business development, and this is the reason why we would, prior to a project, evaluate how much time and effort we would invest in such an analysis or whatever support we would provide. Everything that goes beyond this hour will be offered, and on consensus-based, the company can perform the project with us. Then once the company is clear on the market and knows that this is the right market and how the market works, or what information they had to know about the market, is everything is covered, then we go into the market entry, and there it's about the contacts. Contacts is really something, it's projects where we look for concrete partners in a country. That can be a distribution partner to set up the distribution across a region. It can also be an agent organization or end clients. That's something we do often, that we look for end clients in a specific market to support also the field force in a country that is already established. So it's really from small, medium enterprises to larger organizations. We can help everyone, and in the end, every single project is very specific, and we try to please the company to best possibly address their problems that they have. And we do that with all types of different means. You see here a coverage of the different services, but also partner organizations and what else we can do. Maybe to highlight one, I would pick the export help. This is a help desk that is free of charge. Everyone can call them up, and it's a group of senior export specialists, and what they can provide is technical information on tariffs, customs, but also certifications required. If ever there is a technical problem, export related, please don't hesitate to get in touch with our export help. They're a very experienced person, ladies actually, that will be happy to help you. Apart from that, maybe just one thing, we also do fact-finding trips. That's if you go together with a group of entrepreneurs abroad to share experiences and meet stakeholders. That's something we can organize as well. Now the Nordics. Why should the world look at the Nordic countries? I think there are many reasons. We have seen a lot of media coverage recently, like the Economist cover a few months back. They have done a fairly good job circumventing through the rough times of the past few years, of the first financial crisis and then the economic crisis that followed. So they have done a quite good work, and I'm generalizing once again, to address budget deficit, but then also a lot of support has come from the government to support privatizations in a sustainable way. We will see a bit more later on. So this is the last page where I try to summarize a bit the Nordic market. As I initially said, there is no such thing as a Nordic market. Nevertheless, to still have a rough understanding of what we are talking about, the overall region, here's some indications. We're talking about a population of around 26 million people. That's without the Baltics. GDP is roughly 1.6 billion US dollars. No, excuse me, 1,638 billion US dollars. This is comparable to a size of GDP of Canada, larger than a GDP of Spain or Mexico. One of the unique identifier of the market, what makes it such an attractive market, is definitely the high purchasing power. Just to give you the highest numbers, I think in Denmark you have a per capita a purchasing power of $59,928 US dollars. Norway is a bit below, but in the same region. So people have a purchasing power, and they're happy to spend on quality products. Also, a very distinct criteria is the countries are very innovative. And to give you a few examples of inventions made are the Tetra Pak, 3-point seatbelt, zipper, ultrasound, but more recently in the ICT area, companies like Skype were founded by Danish and Swedish entrepreneurs, Spotify as well, Angry Bird by Finnish, Ovia. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of innovation, and we will see a bit later also why potentially that could be a reason, why these are the culture in the Nordics is so innovative. I mentioned the next point, privatizations were done, liberalizations happened in a market that was strongly regulated. So this change happened. The governments have taken appropriate measures to liberalize and address these changes in a sustainable way. I think the last point is I would summarize that all the four have an affinity for Swiss products. So the brand is a positive one. It's assigned to quality and precision and punctuality and positive connotations. So that's a good thing we can leverage on. In a SWOT overview, you see additional few points I would like to address. Again, overall for the Nordic region, one strength when doing business with the Nordics is definitely that they have a very developed infrastructure. This covers both broadband coverage. They were one of the advanced region in, would say, even worldwide, but then also infrastructure when it comes to transportation. It's in the densely populated areas. It's very well established. Affinity for new products and innovation, so they're very curious. They like to see new things happening, like are open for change. They're very reliable partners. It's a lot of effort to build trust of a Swede. However, if you manage to do so with a lot of effort, you have a long-term relationship. This is a very positive trait. Then I think education level is very high. That's why the Nordic countries work very well with the Swiss as well. This is also for specialists in ICT. As an example, we have a huge pool of potential labor of people who are very specialized, have great know-how. It's a good basis to build your business. When we look at weakness side, large areas are sparsely populated. There are huge countries that go very up in the north, if I talk about Norway, Finland, and Sweden. So whatever business organization you have, that might cause a problem to reach out to the upper ends. On the other hand, it's also an advantage if you look at the big clusters. I will show something about that a bit later. The cost level is very high, so salary level is comparatively very high. Then an additional point I would like to highlight is decision-making process can be lengthy, can be a bit take time. So it's in Sweden, as an example, it's really a quality connotation if you involve all key decision takers into a decision process. So you need to be aware for a Swiss who has a pragmatic attitude and would like to bring things to the point and quickly decide, that might be something unfamiliar. So something to be, you need to know beforehand. If I look at opportunities, definitely high purchasing power, as I said, is something. There is a demand for consumer goods, especially in the high-end segment. People are willing to spend money on quality products. People spend also more and more money on HoReCa, restoration services around that, or high-end food. That's something that is growing in all the markets. Another item, there are a lot of investments done currently in different areas like transportation. If I think of Norway, they're refitting tunnels, they're building new bridges and tunnels, equipping them newly. So there's a lot going on in renovation in the infrastructure area. But then also in medtech area, there is a lot of refitting of old hospitals. New hospitals are built. If I think of Solna in Stockholm as one of the state-of-the-art hospitals, very close to research. For medtech, in all the 4 countries, a lot of investments are currently done. mostly through public procurement, and some of them, like the Solna case I mentioned, they're already closed. Nevertheless, it's an interesting area, and for benchmarking or for refitting, that's still possibly an interesting project. Then everything that when it comes to energy efficient technologies, I think they're world leaders. Countries like Sweden or Denmark, they have been always very aware of sustainable change when it comes to energy efficiency, but also areas like recycling. They have been always upfront. So whenever there is innovative technology from Switzerland, that's something that is very worthwhile trying, and there is definitely a market for that. As a last item, I would like to mention as an opportunity the current industrial cooperation deal with Sweden, and the so-called Gripen case that most of you might be familiar from media. And there is a possibility for Swiss companies, small medium enterprises, to apply to be eligible if you are in the fields of machinery and electronic industry, optical industry, watches, aeronautics, transportation, rail industry, chemical industry, and rubber industry, as well as information technology and communications industry. You should definitely consider applying, especially if you consider a market entry into Sweden. It works as such that Saab was mandated to evaluate the applications in Switzerland. They have a local office branch here, and based on demands, they decide whether the company or the products of the company are interesting. So that means it's not just out of courtesy that they would buy Swiss products because the airplane is might be bought, but it's really because there is a demand on site. That can be either through the Saab Corporation itself as a direct demand, through one of their partner organizations, like a subcontractor organization, or a third party that they're involved with. So it can be from government bodies to large multinationals based in Sweden. It's a large demand based. Wherever they see a match between this demand and whatever the Smith company supplies, there is a fair possibility that contracts can be closed. And just that you know, regardless of the progress right now of the political side of the Gripen deal, contracts have already been closed, so it's a good momentum to apply. Threats, in a nutshell, I mentioned that before, there are certain network type of structures in business, so it needs a lot of effort to do relationship management, and you need to be present locally. You need to have someone in the medium long run who is able to maneuver in the local language. The countries have a strong export dependency, so they're all importing countries, especially Norway is possibly the strongest example in that relation. So there is also a close interdependency with the world economy, and that can positively but also negatively impact the country's status. There is a lot of domestic competition when I look at Sweden. That might be a difficult thing. I mean, Sweden is very strong if you look at the machinery, but also in the ICT sector. They have very, very strong players. In addition, Sweden has also a lot of multinational based there. So if I think of American companies, but also German is one of the strongest trade partners of Sweden, have a lot of large enterprises there. Can be a difficult thing in certain areas. But again, this depends a lot on the field where you're working in. And then, yeah, maybe for Norway, one item, there's a large dependency on the oil and gas industry of the overall economy. Here you see a picture of where the density of population is. So again, I would like to highlight this now as an advantage, because if you see the three large areas, Stockholm, Göteborg, and Malmö, you can cover quite let's say roughly 80% of the whole population of Sweden. So from a distribution point of view, that might be an interesting thing to know. Similar it is with the other countries. Here I picked Norway and Denmark as examples. In Denmark, it is to mention that, interestingly, surprisingly, the industry, like really the machinery industry and the so-called traditional industries, half of them are in the Jutland, which is an area not, it's on the left-hand side, it's not in the Copenhagen region. So it's a bit decentralized industry. Now, how concretely can you enter the Nordic market? I think as a starting point, it's important to know which one is the most interesting market for me. And I'm saying that because it's not always obvious. Many start to focus on Sweden because it has just twice the population of the other three countries, or of the three countries individually. It's not always the best strategy to start with the large one. As I mentioned before, Sweden has quite a tough competition, especially in consumer good area or machinery. So better be careful evaluating maybe what the best appropriate market is with criteria, like possible criteria we will look at a bit later. But to give you a few examples, I had most projects last year for market entries into Denmark. As an example, companies that were interested in street construction, they were refitting street components, and the composition of the material was only in Denmark, given that it's interesting for them, or mostly given. Other area is ripple control systems. They're today only used in Iceland, so it's even a very small country, but that's one of the few countries worldwide next to Australia that uses these type of systems. So even small markets can be big markets for certain clients, and there it's really worthwhile to analyze in detail why a market would be good for the individual products. As a next step, I recommend know your market in depth and your clients. You need to go to the market, to the places, not only once but several times to connect to the people, to get information through official but also informal channels. So be present, go many times, make your opinion, and do a lot of market research, do your homework as well. It's worthwhile. It's saving costs in the long run, it's saving energy, and avoids a lot of trouble. So as soon as you have done so and you know your market and have done everything, choose an appropriate market entry strategy. Now, first, the market. How can you choose the most promising market? I think for every single company, decision criteria can be different, so it's up to the company to define what is a showstopper, what is a key criteria why a market is interesting or not. Switzerland Global Enterprise can always help to do this analysis. We can do market studies very specifically. Again, as I said, in the Nordic countries, I mostly work with experts from the field who have the know-how, who know stakeholders locally and can supply with inside information. But then, as a benchmark, as I said, meet clients, meet partners, go on site. In addition, maybe as a consideration, regional expansion is possible across Nordic countries. However, you need to be careful. Many companies start with a local subsidy in Sweden or with a local with a distribution partner in Sweden, and they don't understand why they can't build business across to Norway or Finland so easily. So it's possible to a certain extent, and the Swede normally understands a Danish person or a Norwegian. However, it's not the same. Culturally, there is still a barrier. It's good to have someone who understands the local customs, the local habits. And it's worthwhile, if you really want to focus on the market, to have people on top of the local languages. Even though as a business language, English is perfectly enough. Everyone is speaks very well English in all the 4 countries. So it's a big advantage of these countries. Now, what type of market information can you look at? The most common one, the studies that we do most, is competitor analysis, but then also consumer behavior and preferences, especially for consumer goods. Price level for comparable products or services, but then also a more delicate area is to find the recommended distribution channel. Now, culturally, I said it's not always the easiest to come as a foreigner or even as a Swede to address another Nordic colleague. Here, I would like to highlight with an example to comparatively put Finland next to Sweden, what these cultural differences are. This is now a bit cliche-driven, but still, I think many Swedes and Finn confirm to me that there is really, some tendency into this direction. So the Finns are known to be very direct and concise in communication. Some would even say scarce with communication. The Swede is the total opposite, and I can confirm it. Swede is more elaborate with communication and more sophisticated with using words, the use of words. The Finn is in tendency more hierarchical. The management structures are more hierarchical organized. Whereas the Swedes use more consensus-based organizations. That means decisions are not taken by the boss like in Finland. The boss decides, implements, and bears the consequences in Finland. In Sweden, it's a more iterative process. You would take all the stakeholders in a room, you would discuss, but also outside in informal bilateral discussions, pieces come together in order to end up with a final decision. So decision-taking process is very lengthy. It can be lengthy. It can be longer. It implies frequent meetings with many participants. Everyone has their say. It's really a consensus-based process, and that means also if someone comes top-down with a decision, if the boss tries to enforce something, it's not necessarily taken as such, but people like to challenge also what decisions are coming from superiors. That's also a bit of a quality attribute. In Finland, if you have fast meetings, short to the point meetings with an outcome, that's something that is associated with quality. So that they think it's efficient if you're fast and direct and concise and to the point. Versus in Sweden, the notion of time is very closely linked to quality, creativity, and entrepreneurship. So a certain creativity and quality implies time. So the long decision-taking process is just a manifestation of this quality. So again, in a nutshell, I think these are possible strategy points how to enter the Nordic market, or one country of the Nordic markets. In the end, a Swiss SME or a Liechtensteinish SME needs to take the decision what type of internationalization mode they would like to run. So is it only export from the home country to the country? Is it finding a local distribution partner? It's something that we can definitely do. That's something we do a lot to help find local distribution partners. There it's important to have a good contractual basis with this partner, whatever the company needs to have support with, logistically or otherwise. Other possibility would be to have an independent sales agent. There it's also important to have a good contractual basis, to be careful when starting elaborating this criteria together. The more severe or the more concrete long-term possibility would be to have a local subsidy, a branch office in the market itself. That's nothing that differs from any other countries or regions in the world. Do's and don'ts in a nutshell, I would recommend to everyone considering enter one of the countries of the Nordic markets. Be unique, have a unique identifier of your product when you do brand positioning. That means the more special, the more different case you can make, the more creative or innovative it is, the more you catch attention. Relationship building, I cannot say it enough, is key, and it's absolutely a must. You need to be present, go several times on site, speak to people, to socialize. That goes beyond regular business time, spend evenings together, go to sauna if it's needed. That's really how relationship building works in the Nordics. Well-positioned quality products with smart design. Design is very high as an important aspect for all the 4 countries. E-commerce is commonly used, so across the population, people use e-banking, but also e-commerce solutions. All ages are familiar, I would say, comparatively to other countries. That's something very commonly used. International references can be very helpful if it's an international client that you have in another country, or local clients from Sweden. If you try to enter Sweden, if you have someone you worked with before, that's something that is very appreciated. Fairs is something that is still used as a B2B platform in countries like Finland or Sweden. There are many international fairs taking place in the Nordic countries. It's something the locals use for benchmarking, but also to meet with all their stakeholders at one place. So in other countries, fairs might have lost importance, but not in Northern Europe. That's something that is still very important. So to summarize, a few milestones, things that we're doing as an organization. You can anytime contact me if you have questions about any individual country, whether you need help or you're looking for a local partner. We have 4 times a year special country consulting days for Northern Europe. Next one is taking place between 3rd and 10th of February. We're going to have this time my trade officer from the Swiss Embassy in Stockholm, as well as my trade officer from the Swiss Embassy in Helsinki present with me. The 3 of us will go and visit companies, or the companies are very happy to join us in Zurich in our premises, and we will do like service public individual first assessments of their requirements to enter Nordic markets. 4th of April, we're going to have an event in Ticino, in Lugano, together with the Chamber of Commerce's, the local Chamber of Commerce and the Swedish-Swiss Chamber of Commerce, related to the industrial cooperation with Saab. We're going to have similar events out in the region across the next year. So this is the starting point. I'm happy to inform about these ones. And the next consulting days with my local representatives from Sweden and possibly Norway or Finland will be between the 10th and the 13th of June. So don't hesitate, on our web pages you will find all information related to that. I'm very happy and open for your questions. Don't hesitate to come to me for any inquiries.
Thank you, Sandra. It was really an interesting view, an insight view, I call. You showed us some information and some aspects which obviously, or to be honest, from my point of view, I really didn't know the difference from Finland to Sweden. For me, everything was almost the same. Apologize for that. But it's always good to have those experts and give us the right view to them. There are a few small companies listening today, or we are talking to smaller companies in the last days, and they always ask when I want to start doing export, where should I go? Asia, North America, big market, huge markets, Germany, closed markets, or could also the Nordics country be something for those smaller SMEs which want to start export? What's your opinion and what's your advice on this?
So I would say definitely yes, they can be the first starting point for experts. However, you need to have someone in the organization who is able to speak English. Without someone who is able to cover English as a business language, it's going to be tough. You need to have that. And I would say also you need to have an English web page presence. That's something, a prerequisite that might be different from the German if you target Germany. However, when it comes to business relations, I think it's if you take the example of Sweden, it's definitely a very interesting country where you have the same affinity, cultural closeness. You get along very easily with Swedes and Swiss. They understand each other very well. Same level of quality, understanding, punctuality. I mean, more or less, not always. I'll say, yeah, let's pick the example of Finns. That's something that helps you to build an international experience. As a starting point, I would say Northern Europe can be even more interesting than another country that is definitely for small companies. It can be a better starting point than a complex market with difficult regulation situation like Brazil or China, where it's tougher and you need to take in larger investments in your hands. It's easier accessible flight-wise. So these are all factors that can, I would say, would support the opinion, yes, it's a good starting market.
Thank you, Sandra. And as you may remember, we also let the Swedish win the ice hockey championship at home, so they won't bother us too much if we enter it, even if we won the opening game. But they won the gold medal, so everything is fine, also for the Swedish, probably. Thank you for attending. This webinar was recorded and will be published soon on aussenhandel.postfinance.ch and as well on youtube.com/Aussenhandel. If you have any further questions, please do not hesitate to contact my colleagues from PostFinance or Sandra Tobler direct. She knows everything about the country. We try to support you as good as we can from the financial side with the transaction and with everything about the Forex trade. There are a few more webinars which come up. Country consulting on Latin America on the 11th of February, and there is one about targeting new clients based on a twin analysis. And if you know where to go after watching this webinar for the Nordics, Latin America, or the US webinar which we recorded a few days ago, then in March it's time for international direct marketing. How can you sell your products on direct export by using direct marketing, or support your export or trading targets in the foreign markets by using direct marketing? I think it will be a very interesting webinar as well. We look forward to see you there again. You can register already now on aussenhandel.postfinance.ch all the time. It's open for registration. Further webinars will come during the next weeks. We are looking forward to see you again with us. Thanks for your time. Thanks, Sandra, again for those inside view, and we look forward to your success, and we wish you a lot of success and a lot of fun by doing your next export trade. Thanks, and have a good time. Bye.